On my previous show, I came up with the 5 top NFL spring storylines. I want to bounce a couple of off you right now. Number 3 on my top 5 list was Denver's quarterback plans. We had Sean Payton on our show the Friday of Super Bowl week, and he basically said anybody that ascribes a certain approach to us right now, we haven't even had our meetings yet. And he said they were going to happen the Monday after the Super Bowl. He even said that Russ has to be in the conversation because he's still in the building. He wants to stay there, is what he said. And he said that counts for something. So I put that in front of you as to what tea leaves you can read there, because that's one big stone in the pond here about whether Denver is going to be in the market drafting or even free agency for a quarterback.
It's not going to be Russell Wilson. It's not. Unless he has some sort of epiphany that causes him to do something contractually to make himself more palatable to the Broncos. And I think there's already enough bad blood there from what happened last year between the fact that the things went down and Russell Wilson pursued an NFLPA grievance, even though it didn't come to a grievance. There were some nasty letters exchanged. The fact that that even came out has to rankle somebody who was a Bill Parcells disciple in Sean Payton. It comes down to this. They owe him $39 million this year, no matter what. If he's on the roster March 17, they owe him another $37 million fully guaranteed next year. He will not be on the roster on March 17. His house, his 20,000 square foot, $25 million mansion is up for sale in Denver. He's moving on. And the real question to me is, will he take a 1-year bare minimum deal from someone else, make it easier for that team to put a roster around him and stick the Broncos with the balance? When all this stuff went down late in the season, that was the sense I got. We'll see how it plays out once he's cut, but I think he's going to be cut, and I think he's going to be available to anybody who wants him.
Who's going to want him?
Well, I saw he was the betting favorite to go to the Steelers, even though there was a report from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette over the weekend that the Steelers aren't interested in a veteran quarterback who wants to start, which you look at it and say, I mean, even though Russell Wilson isn't the guy that he used to be, Russell Wilson, Kenny Pickett, Mason Rudolph, all due respect, if you could get Russell Wilson for $1.2 million for 1 year, how do you not do that? The Raiders, If spite has crept into this equation at all, and you have to assume at some level it has, and the first team that I heard when all this was going down and all the rancor was out there and there were reports and people were talking to different folks on and off the record, the Raiders were the first team I heard because you're going straight to a rival of the Broncos. So you can stick it to the Broncos as a member of the Raiders. The question is, do the Raiders want him? And at $1.2 million, how could you say no to that, Rich? Wherever he is now, relative to what he used to be, dollar for dollar, if he's willing to do $1.2 million and give the Broncos the balance of that on their books for this year, how do you not say yes to that?
And Sean Payton during the season was honest when he was saying, "Hey, look, I got to, we got to get this right because if I'm making the wrong decision here on this, then someone else is going to be talking to you at some point down the road." So who do you think is going to be his choice, draftee or free agents? What do you got?
The fact that they are going to move on from Russell Wilson, Rich, is going to create significant salary cap issues this year and even more so next year. They got more than $80 million in dead money they're going to have to deal with. And if they designate him as a post-June 1 release, it becomes a little bit easier. But still, they're not in a position to go out and pay market value to to Kirk Cousins or maybe a Baker Mayfield. So I think they're going to look to the draft. And, the question becomes, can Sean Payton find somebody who he believes can run his offense the way that he wants it to be run, with a lot of the important stuff happening before the snap? That's the thing you need to watch when you go back and watch Broncos games. What was really going on before the snap? What kind of sense of urgency was there? What kind of changes were being made? We see different quarterbacks doing all sorts of things and calling out all sorts of words and pointing here and pointing there. Watch Russell Wilson. There isn't a whole lot of that. I think to make any offense work well, you got to have that component. And I think that may be the thing that ultimately caused Sean Payton to give up on Russell Wilson.
And then explain June 1st cut to people, Mike, because that might mean if they do designate him post June 1, does that mean Russ is still sitting there top of the summer, still with no gig? And then most teams have already filled up, right, Mike?
Good question. It used to be that June 1 was a very active day on the NFL news cycle because you had to literally wait until after June 1 to cut a guy and spread the ensuing salary cap charge over 2 years.
Right.
Now you can, and I think it's up to 2 per team each year, you can designate a player that you release after the league year begins as a post-June 1 cut, and that takes whatever's left of the dead money. You get this year's charge that you would have had anyway, and then whatever's left over goes next year. It's not a 50-50 split necessarily. It depends how many years are left, but it makes it a lot easier to put a guy out there. This is very pro-player. It lets a team put a player out there so he can get a contract somewhere else instead of having to squat on him until June 1.
Right, and then the player has a better opportunity to find his next job. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.